Can machines think? You know, it's a question that sounds like it's pulled straight out of a sci-fi movie, but it was actually asked more than 70 years ago by the brilliant mathematician Alan Turing. And that one simple question, well, it didn't just start a debate. It pretty much lit the fuse for a whole technological revolution. So today, we're going to dive deep into that incredible story. This is the story of artificial intelligence. We're going to trace how this idea went from something you've only seen in the movies to, well, to the reality we live in today. We'll look at its earliest days, the long years where it felt like nothing was happening, its incredible comeback, and what its crazy growth means for all of us. But before we jump in our time machine, let's just make sure we're all on the same page. At its very core, AI is about building systems that don't just follow instructions. It's about systems that can see, learn, and adapt. It's about teaching a machine to figure out how to reach a goal, not just telling it what to do step by step. All right, let's rewind. Our story kicks off in the 1950s. You gotta picture it. Computers were these massive things, the size of entire rooms, and they were basically just giant, clunky calculators. But a few visionaries were already dreaming of something so much bigger. Now, what's so wild about this time is just the sheer optimism. In 1950, Alan Turing comes up with this test. Could a machine trick a person into thinking it was human? Then, just 6 years later, a guy named John McCarthy gives this dream its name, artificial intelligence. And their goal? It was audacious. They believed they could simulate every single aspect of human intelligence in a machine. But that initial burst of excitement, well, it pretty quickly slammed into a brick wall. The ambition was there for sure, but the technology just wasn't ready. And this led to a long, kind of frustrating period where progress really slowed down. It wasn't all bad, though. We saw these little flashes of the future. In '66, there was a chatbot named Eliza that actually convinced some people it was a real therapist just by using some clever word tricks. Then you had Shaky, the first robot that could actually look around and figure out how to move on its own. But these little wins just weren't enough to stop what people call the AI winter, when the funding just dried up because the big promises hadn't really panned out. And this quote right here from a really big government report at the time, it just perfectly captures the mood. It basically said, hey, this AI stuff isn't delivering, and that led to massive funding cuts. For a while there, it really felt like the dream was over. But then, things started to change. Computer power finally started catching up with those big dreams, and AI reappeared in the public eye in a really interesting way. It started winning games. 200 million. Just let that number sink in for a second. That's how many chess positions IBM's Deep Blue computer could analyze every single second. This incredible raw power led to that historic moment in 1997 when it beat the world chess champion, Garry Kasparov. It was a victory of pure brute force calculation. Okay, this slide is absolutely crucial because it shows the next giant leap. Deep Blue was amazing, but it was all about processing speed. Now, fast forward to 2016, Google's AlphaGo beats the world champion of Go, a game so mind-bogglingly complex that brute force is completely useless. There are more possible moves in Go than there are atoms in the universe. AlphaGo didn't win by calculating everything, it won because it had learned strategy. It developed something that looked a lot like human intuition. So yeah, this wasn't just another machine beating a person. This was totally different. AlphaGo's victory proved that AI had made a fundamental jump from just calculating to something that looked an awful lot like creative thinking. So what happened? How did we get this huge leap? Well, it was basically a perfect storm of three things. First, we got way faster computers thanks to these special chips called GPUs that were originally made for video games. Second, the internet gave us this massive, unbelievable library of data for AIs to learn from. And third, we came up with smarter ways for them to learn with breakthroughs like deep learning. And that perfect storm brings us right up to today. AI is no longer just some research project stuck in a university lab. It's everywhere. It's in your pocket. I mean, you use it every single day, probably without even thinking twice about it. When you ask Siri for the weather, that's AI. When Netflix just knows what movie you want to watch next, that's AI. And of course, there's the recent explosion of what we call generative AI, tools like ChatGPT and Midjourney that can create brand new text and images just from a simple sentence. Just look at this timeline. It's incredible. In a little over a decade, we went from Siri being a cool new thing on our phones, to Alexa putting AI right into our homes, to ChatGPT, a tool so powerful it's changing how millions of us work and create. The pace of change is just Astonishing.
And this latest wave, these generative models, this is what has everyone so excited, and maybe a little nervous. We've gone from an AI that analyzes information to an AI that can create totally new things: art, music, code, even video. It's a massive shift in what these things can do.
So where does this all go? This amazing power brings with it incredible opportunities, but also some really big risks, and we're all trying to figure out how to deal with it in real time. As AI gets more and more powerful, it naturally brings up some huge questions. When you look at the top concerns people are talking about, you see things like bias in the algorithms, the impact on jobs, and privacy. These aren't just technical puzzles to solve, they're major societal challenges we have to face head-on.
Let's just zoom in on one of these for a second, the bias problem. The risk is actually pretty easy to understand. If you train an AI on data from our messy, often biased human history, well, guess what? The AI is going to learn those same biases, and that can have real-world consequences in things like hiring or getting a loan. The solution involves a lot of hard work, like carefully building better data sets and having humans in the loop to catch these problems.
And in response to all these big questions, we're starting to see a global race to create some rules for the road. The EU is taking a really big step with its AI Act. Here in the US, different states are starting to create their own laws, and global groups like the UN are pushing for international standards on the really scary stuff. And just as we're all getting our heads around today's AI, the next wave is already on the horizon. It's called agentic AI. Think about it this way. ChatGPT responds to what you ask it. An AI agent would take your goal, like plan me a trip to Italy, and then go off on its own to research flights, book hotels, and build an itinerary, all without you having to guide it at every step. It's AI that doesn't just respond, it acts.
Which brings us all the way back to the biggest question of all. What is this thing we're building? Is it destined to be our greatest partner, helping us solve humanity's biggest problems? Or are we building something else? The wild part is, the story is still being written, and all of us, we're a part of it.